Yu-Gi-Oh is an expensive card game, but it doesn't really have to be. A lot of the top decks in the formats and formats prior were all extremely expensive, going from over $100 plus even up to $1,000. However, today in this video, I'm going to be showing you 5 budget decks from $100 and below, all going in descending order, and they're all going to be super competent decks that you're going to be able to take to your locals and potentially win it with it. So that's enough yapping. Let's get into the decks. Alrighty, starting off with our first deck, here is Yubel. Now, I wanted to make Yubel, but I also wanted to incorporate the Fiendsmith in it while also keeping it budget. In order to do that, we had to include the worst Fiendsmith cards, or at least the worst in terms of people's public perception of them, being Fiendsmith Sanct. The entire reason we're on Fiendsmith Sanct is just to make a level 1 Fiend in order to make a sequence so we can fuse into an Aerial Eater to get our Yubel combo started that way. So we're on triple copies of Sanct just for the purpose of getting a light Fiend on the other side of the board, and because of that, we're not playing any of the other Fiendsmith cards. Now, initially, I wanted to play some of the other Fiendsmith cards. However, they did jump in price recently because of how the ban list went, so unfortunately, those are no longer going to be a budget option. But without further ado, let's get into the card list. Let's talk about the cards card by card. We're on triple copies of Samsara D Lotus. This card we contribute to special Yubel from our deck. And during our opponent's turn, when a monster effect is activated, we control a Yubel monster. We can quick effect tribute this card and change the activated effect to destroying a Yubel on the field. During our end phase, if we control a Yubel, that's the original Yubel, and this card's in our graveyard, we can special summon this card from our graveyard. Or we can add it to our hand, either or. But we're on triple copies of Samsara D Lotus. It's one of our best normal summon starters, as well as double copies of Gruesome Grave Squirmer. If we control a Fiend monster, quick effect, we can special summon this card from our hand. Then we can choose to destroy Yubel or a monster that mentions it from our field. We can banish it from our graveyard, target a Fiend in our graveyard with 0 attack and 0 defense, except for itself, and then special summon it. Incredibly powerful effect on this card, allowing us to get us into the game, and it's 2 extenders packed into 1. Really fantastic stuff. For our Yubels, we're on double copies of Spirit of Yubel. Cannot destroy a battle. You take no battle damage involving this card. If this card is destroyed, we can special summon the Yubel that's banished in our hand, deck, or graveyard. And we can lose each of the following effects of Spirit of Yubel once per turn. When your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned, we can add to our hand or set 1 spell or trap from our deck that mentions Yubel. An amazing card. This card searches as our Nightmare Pain, which prevents decks like Tempai from actually killing us. We're also on the OG Yubel, cannot destroy a battle. You take no battle damage from battles involving this card. Before a damage calc, if this face of attack position card is targeted for an attack, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the attacking monster's attack. Once returned during the end step, you can tribute another monster or destroy this card. When this card is destroyed, except by its own effect, its owner can special summon 1 Yubel Terror Incarnate from their hand, deck, or graveyard. And then we're on 1 Yubel Terror Incarnate. This guy's effect is a little bit less relevant. It's just a big man that has Yubel in the name, which you'll see why it's relevant a little bit later. We're on 1 copy of Terraforming and 2 copies of Nightmare Throne. We're only on 2 copies of Nightmare Throne because this card is 15 a copy, so it is a little bit antithetical to our budget, idea. However, we were able to jam 2 in there and not have the list go a little too much over 100. This card functionally allows us to add a Fiend with 0 attack, 0 defense from our deck and either add it to our hand or destroy it, allowing us to destroy either a Spirit of Yubel from our deck or adding from our deck to our hand with Samsara D Lotus. Fantastic card effect here. And also, if a face-up Yubel monster you control leaves the field by a card effect, you can add to your hand 1 Yubel monster from your deck, graveyard, or banishment, whose original level is 1 higher or lower than the monster that was destroyed. You can special summon it and ignore any summoning conditions. Incredibly powerful card effect. The main purpose of this in this list is to be recycling our Phantom of Yubel. We're on double copies of Nightmare Pain. During our main phase, we can destroy a dark monster on a hand or face-up field. If we do add a Yubel or a card that mentions it from our deck to our hand, except for Nightmare Pain, we can use that effective Nightmare Pain once per turn. While we control a Yubel monster, your opponent's monsters must attack the Yubel monsters, and they take any battle damage we would have taken from battles involving Yubels. Incredibly powerful card effect. It's basically why are you hitting yourself, forcing them into the battle phase and forcing them to attack our Yubels. Incredibly strong card. And then speaking of a card that is strong, I guess we're on 1 copy of Puri Reese Map. This is just here in order to search monsters with 0 attack from our deck to our hand, being either Samsara D Lotus or our next card being Dark Beckoning Beast. With its normal summon, we can add a card that mentions any of the Sacred Beasts, so it's going to be adding Opening of the Spirit Gates functionally. And while it's normal summoned on the field, we're able to commit an extra normal summon. So, incredibly strong way to get our Samsara D Lotus while not having to commit our real normal summon to it via Dark Beckoning Beast. Incredibly strong effect, and once we get to opening of the Spirit Gates, you'll see why it's so strong. We're also on Unchained cards, double copies of Unchained Soul of Sharvara, recently put from 1 to 2 on the last ban list. Incredibly strong card since all of our Yubel cards want to be popped. This card allows us to dodge targeted interaction, even on cards like Samsara D Lotus. If our opponent wants to imprint them on summon, we can still get some value out of them by popping them and special summoning our Sharvara out. We're also on 2 copies of Unchained Traps, 1 Escape allowing us to target an Unchained in a card on field and destroying both, and 1 Chamber allowing us to target an Unchained in our graveyard or in our hand and special summoning them. We're on generic cards of 1 for 1. We're on the Triple Sanct that I mentioned previously. If we control no face-up monsters, the only cards we control are Light Fiends. We're able to summon a Light Fiend token, and then we can't attack for the rest of the turn except for with Fiend monsters. Not especially relevant, that last part, but the main thing is, if we do open this is the first thing that we have to do in our turn, which isn't the worst thing. We're not playing any cards that are really fighting for that first place position, so not really the end of the world. And then we're also on triple copies of Opening of the Spirit Gates. When it's activated, add a card that mentions those cards. So basically, Dark Beckoning Beast is going to add Opening. Opening is going to add a card that mentions the Sacred Beasts being Dark Beckoning Beast, and so on and so forth. This card also has the effect where we can discard a card to special summon a Fiend with 0 attack or 0 defense from our graveyard. And then once returned, if we control a level 10 monster, we can add a continuous spell from our graveyard to our hand. That's not just itself, that can also add stuff like Nightmare Pain. Incredibly powerful effect. We gotta be playing 3 and 3 of this, at least in this type of list. And then for our non-engine, we're on 1 copy of Triple Tactics Talents, 1 copy of Call by the Grave, triple copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, triple copies of Effect Veiler, and triple copies of Nibiru the Primal Being. In our extra deck, we're on 1 copy of Phantom of Yubel. We just get to make this by putting the materials from our hand, field, or graveyard back into the deck. And this is just a negate. When our opponent activates a monster effect, we can tribute this card. The activated effect, your opponent becomes your opponent destroys 1 Yubel in their hand, deck, or field. And that is a once per turn. So this is a card that'll stop cards like Nibiru, stop cards like Ash Blossom, stop cards like Fool Loss. If your opponent holds Fool Loss for you to start your main phase, you can make your first action in the main phase, making a Phantom Yubel and turning that Fool Loss off for the rest of the turn. We're also on double copies of Unchained Soul Lord of Yama, 1 copy of Rage, 1 copy of Anguish, 1 copy of Abomination. We gotta kind of go all in on these Unchained since our extra deck is a little bit tighter given our monetary constraints. We're also on double copies of Muckracker from the Underworld in order to bring cards back from our graveyard and protect our board. 1 copy of Espinous Little Knight in order to pair with our Unchained Soul of Rage. 1 copy of Nightmare Unicorn as an additional target for our Unchained Soul of Rage. 1 copy of Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy for link plays. 1 copy of the sequence that I mentioned previously is there to make the Aerial Eater. 1 copy of Aerial Eater, which is entire purpose in the deck is to be made only if we open our Fiendsmith Tract and we get the token on board to make a sequence, because we can go Aerial Eater effect in order to dump a Samsara D Lotus. Then we can go sequence plus Aerial Eater to go into a Muckracker. Muckracker discard a card to special summon Samsara D Lotus. And then we can use Lotus Effect in order to get our Spirit of Yubel out and then do our entire Yubel play without really having to open any real Yubel cards, if you know what I mean. We're also on 1 copy of DDD Wave High King Caesar. We can use Aerial Eater plus the level 6 Sharvara in order to make it, so it is not outside the realm of possibility. And 1 copy of Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max for time situations. That's going to be about it for this list, and now let us get on to our second place list, which is going to be a little bit cheaper than this one. Our second budget deck of the day is going to be Crystron. Crystron is quite a budget deck, and a lot of lists have found a way to make it budget to the point where it's like $10 to $15. However, I wanted to go a little bit more into it and play a lot more of a meta build of Crystron. And this is a deck that is actually incredibly competent, and you will be able to take to locals, and you will be able to top the tournament if you play it correctly. So without further ado, here is the list. We're on double copies of Crystron Sulfafnir. If it's in our hand or graveyard, we can pitch a Crystron card except for itself to special summon defense position, then pop a card we control. And if it's popped, we can special summon a Crystron from our deck in defense position. Typically, we're going to be popping itself with that effect. We're on triple copies of Crystron Sulfafdor. If this card's in our hand or graveyard, we can target a Crystron card we control, destroy it. If we do special summon it, we can't special the rest of the turn out of the extra except for machines. And if it's normal or a special summon, we can send up to 2 Crystron cards with different names from our deck to the graveyard except for itself. Incredibly powerful effect. Foolish for 2 is super strong. We're on one copy of Crystron Thirstvern. You can target one face-up card you control. You cannot special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except for Machine Synchro monsters. Also destroy that card, and if you do special summon a Crystron Tuner from your deck, we're not really going to be using that effect all too often. We're mostly going to be using the graveyard effect. We can banish this card from your graveyard, add a Crystron monster from your deck to your hand, except for itself. We can only use one of these effects per turn. We're also on triple copies of Smiger, which is very similar. It has an on-field effect that is very similar to Thirstfern. However, we're only going to be using it for its graveyard effect, being to banish from our graveyard to add a Crystron spell or trap from our deck to our hand. And again, we can only use one of those effects per turn, and only once that turn. We're on triple copies of the new card, Crystron Tristeros. When our opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, we can special summon a Crystron from our deck, except for itself. Then immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon a Machine Synchro monsters using monsters you control, including that card. We can banish this card from our graveyard, destroy one Synchro monster we control, and if we do special summon 2 Crystrons from our deck, and we cannot special for the rest of the turn from the extra except for machines. An incredibly powerful effect, which is Synchro by itself, and then an Xyz by itself, which is super strong. We're also on Crystron tuners of double copies of Crystron Citri and one copy of Crystron Rion. These are a personal choice of mine, not especially, standard per se, but I do like them a lot. We're on triple copies of Crystron Inclusion. When it's activated, we can add a Crystron card from our deck to our hand, except for itself. The first time a Crystron monster you control to be destroyed by battle each turn, it is not. And we can banish this card from our graveyard, target a Crystron in our graveyard, and special summon it. None of those effects are hard once per turn, so we can use each of those effects once per turn, which is fantastic. We're on one copy of Crystron Cluster. Crystron cards we control cannot be banished by our opponent's card effects. Really cool against SP, Little Nice, and Malice right now. You can target one face-up card on the field. You can target 2 if you control a Crystron Synchro. Shuffle one Crystron card from your graveyard or banishment into the deck, except for Cluster, and if you do, destroy the targeted cards. Incredibly powerful effect. Typically, how we're going to be utilizing this is by grabbing it back from our graveyard with our Skibidi. We're also on Speedroids, triple Terratop and 1 Takatomborg in order to make a quick Cherubini, in order to make to search a Smiger from our deck to our graveyard, and then, add Inclusion, which is really great. One copy of Foolish Burial for the same purpose. Why make Cherubini if we can just Foolish Burial the Smiger? Triple copies of Forbidden Droplet for negating stuff, since everything in this deck really likes being in the graveyard. Triple copies of Thrust, 1 copy of Talents. Triple copies of Ash Blossom, triple copies of Imperm, and triple copies of Nibiru. In our extra deck, we're on 1 copy of Cherubini and 1 copy of Clockwork Knight. Works really powerfully with our Crystron Inclusion, and it is a machine in our extra deck. The issue with Cherubini is that it is a fairy, so we have to do this before any of our Crystron plays, meaning if we open Terratop, that has to be our first play functionally. We're also on Xyz monsters of double Cyber Dragon Nova and double Cyber Dragon Infinity, just for negates and absorption from our opponent's monsters. And then we're of generic synchros of Samurai Destroyer, Vermilion Dragon Mech, double FA Dawn Dragster, and 1 powered Insectron to prevent our opponent from OTKing us. For our Crystron cards, we're on double Crystron Escibity, 1 Carrion Gandrax, and 1 Crystron Penis. That's going to be it for this specific list. Now let's head on to our next list. Again, it's going to be a little bit cheaper, but it's still going to be quite a strong list. All right, here we are with our third budget deck. Here is going to be Chaos Thunder Dragon. Now, Chaos has gotten a couple cards taken off the list somewhat recently, being 1 copy of White Dragon Wyvern Burster and 1 copy of Black Dragon Collapse Serpent, while Thunder Dragon has gotten Thunder Dragon Colossus completely taken off the list. So I wanted to see what we were able to accomplish running a Chaos Brew in the Year of Our Lord 2025 with Thunder Dragon. So here we are. This deck is going to be about $88 as of time of recording this video, and I believe it is going to be quite a worthwhile deck for that price point. Starting off our list, we're on triple copies of Thunder Dragon, allowing us to pitch this card and adding up to 2 of itself from our deck to our hand. We're on triple copies of Roar. If it's sent from the field to the graveyard or banished from the graveyard to the banishment zone, we're able to special summon a Thunder Dragon other than itself from our deck, except it's bounced at the end of the turn. Or we can discard it from our hand in order to add a Thunder Dragon card that's banished on our graveyard to our hand, but we can only activate 1 of those effects per turn, and all of these Thunder Dragons have that effect on them, so if I mentioned 2 effects, you can only activate 1 or the other in a single turn. We're on triple copies of Thunder Dragon Dark, allowing us to pitch it from our hand to add another copy of itself from our deck to our hand as a quick effect, or if it's sent from the field to the graveyard or banished from our graveyard to the banishment zone, we can add a Thunder Dragon card from our deck to our hand. We're on double copies of Thunder Dragon Hawk, allowing us to discard it from our hand in order to special summon a Thunder Dragon that's banished or in our graveyard, or if it's sent from the field to the graveyard or banished from the graveyard to the banishment zone, we can shuffle as many cards from our hand back into our deck and draw the same amount. Typically, we're going to be using that first effect in order to reborn it, because that means it's Colossus by itself. We're also on double copies of Thunder Dragon Matrix. Quick effect, we can pitch it from our hand to target a Thunder we control and it gains some attack. Or if it's banished or sent from the field to the graveyard, we can add another copy of itself from our deck to our hand. We're also on one copy of Thunder Dragon Fusion, allowing us to fusion summon a Thunder Dragon Fusion monster from our extra deck by shuffling the materials listed on it from our deck, from our shuffled it. And we're on one copy of Thunder Dragon Fusion, allowing us to fusion summon a Thunder Dragon Fusion monster from our extra deck by shuffling the fusion materials listed on it from our deck into our deck from among the cards in our field, graveyard, and face-up banishment. And during our main phase, except the turn it was sent to the graveyard, we can banish it from our graveyard to add a Thunder monster from our deck to our hand. Incredibly powerful stuff there. This is one of the cards that we're able to search off of Thunder Dragon Dark if we need to. We're also on triple copies of Aloof Lupine, and we're on Bystials, double Lubellion, one Magnemut, one Druis Worm, one Saronir, and double Baldrake, as well as one copy of Branded Regained in order to get advantage every single time something is banished. For our Chaos portion of the deck, we're on one copy of Chaos Space, double copies of Black Dragon Collapse Serpent, double copies of White Dragon Wyvern Burster, and two copies of Chaos Dragon Levianeer. We're also on Gold Sarcophagus in order to banish cards like our Thunder Dragon Dark or Thunder Dragon Roar. We're on triple copies of Allure of Darkness as well to draw additional cards and banish again cards like Thunder Dragon Dark and Thunder Dragon Roar. One copy of Call by the Grave, and hand traps of double Nibiru and triple Effect Failure, specifically because these are light monsters that we can use for our Chaos cards. In our extra deck, we're on one copy of Striker Dragon, just as a way to get these Black Dragon or White Dragon off the field and trigger their graveyard effect. One copy of Hermetic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres, just so we have a Dragon end board piece. One copy of Cross Sheep, one copy of IP Masquerena, as well as a Lina and a Dark. Since we are a light and dark deck, we are able to utilize both of these cards. Lina in terms of Fiendsmith and Dark in terms of everything else. One copy of Espinus Little Knight in order to pair with our IP Masquerena, as well as one copy of Night Air Unicorn, one copy of Access Code Talker, one copy of World Sea Dragon Zelantis, and one copy of Saryuja Skuldroid if we really need to be digging deeper into our deck. We're also on triple copies of Thunder Dragon Colossus, just so we always have them, and one copy of Thunder Dragon Titan, the main card we're going to be fusion summoning using Thunder Dragon Fusion. Thunder Dragon Titan says must be fusion summoned or special summoned by banishing a Thunder monster from your hand and one Thunder Fusion monster you control, except for Thunder Dragon Titan, although we really don't want to be doing that because that means we'll have to be banishing a Colossus for it. And when a Thunder Dragon monster's effect is activated on the hand, even during the damage step, quick effect, you can destroy one card on the field. And if this card would be destroyed by card effect, we can banish two cards from our graveyard instead. That is why we're playing Thunder Dragon Matrix, so it's a quick effect ability in order to trigger our Thunder Dragon Titan. But that's going to be about it for our third budget deck. Now let us scoot on over to our cheaper fourth budget deck. Here we are with our fourth budget deck. I am bringing Labrynth. Now, this deck is quite a bit cheaper than it was last time I covered it, and that is mostly because of the 25th tins, as well as the fact is a lot of these cards are just getting cheaper as it's kind of like rotating out of the metagame and people are kind of losing interest in it. But this deck is still very competent, and I wanted to show it off today. So here is Labrynth as a budget deck. You see at the moment of recording, it's about 65.28. Starting off our list, we're on triple copies of Ariana. On normal or special, we can add a Labrynth card from our deck to our hand except for itself. If another monster leaves the field by a normal trap effect, you can draw a card and apply a certain effect. From our hand, special summoning a fiend or setting a trap, and we can only use that effect once per turn and only once that turn. Very similar to the Thunder Dragons. We're also on triple copies of Arias, the Labyrinth Butler. During the main phase, we can send this card from our hand or field to the graveyard, special summon a Labyrinth, or set a normal trap from our hand. Or the set normal trap can be activated the turn that we set it as well. When our opponent activates a card or effect in response to a card or effect activation of a normal trap or a Labyrinth card, except for Arias, quick effect, we can activate this effect in the graveyard to special summon this card, and we can use each effective Arias once per turn. Incredibly powerful effect, allowing us to have turn 0 plays during our opponent's first turn, since it is a quick effect during any main phase, allowing us to play on our opponent's first turn. We're also on double copies of Lady Labrynth of the Silver Castle. While we control a set card, your opponents cannot target this card with card effects and cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects once per turn. If a Labrynth card or effect or a normal trap card is activated this turn, except for Lady Labrynth of the Silver Castle, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. When a normal trap card is activated, a quick effect, you can set a different normal trap card from your deck to your field, which is incredibly strong, just to basically pick and choose exactly which traps you want at any given moment. We're also on one copy of Lovely Labrynth of the Silver Castle. Your opponent can activate monster effects in response to the activation of your normal trap cards. You can only use each of the following effects of Lovely Labrynth of the Silver Castle once per turn. You can target a normal trap in your graveyard, send it to your field, but cannot be activated unless you control a fiend monster. And if If another monster leaves the field by a normal trap effect, we can destroy a card in our opponent's hand at random or on their field, not at random. And then our last Labrynth card that isn't a piece of furniture is one copy of Ariana, the Labrynth Servant, allowing us to send a normal trap from our hand or set on our field to the graveyard to special summon a level 4 or lower fiend from our deck in defense position, except for Ariana. This is a cute way in order to get this is Ariane, this is Ariana, my apologies. So Ariane can grab Ariana by discarding any trap card, which is really useful. And then if a monster leaves the field by a normal trap card, we can draw a card and then apply the effect, or we can either special summon a fiend from our hand or set a spell and trap from our hand. Very useful. But that's it for our Labrynth monsters that aren't furniture. We're also on furniture of Chandrag Lear, which is able to set a card from our deck, Coup Clock that allows us to activate a card the turn it's set, and then Torby that also allows us to set a card from our deck, which is very useful. We're also on one copy of Lab that applies additional effects after we activate a Welcome Labrynth normal trap, where if we activate either Welcome Labrynth or a Big Welcome Labrynth, we get to pop a card at point of resolution, non-targeting. We're also on triple copies of Big Welcome, allowing us to summon a lab from our hand, deck, or graveyard, and then bounce a card we control. And we can banish from our graveyard to target a fiend we control, or if we control a high-level fiend, we can target a card our opponent controls and bounce them. We're also on triple copies of a Welcome Lab, special summoning a lab from our deck, and then we're locked into fiends until the end of the next turn. And if our opponent's monster leaves the field by a normal trap effect while this card's in our graveyard, except the turn it was sent there, we can reset it. We're also on triple copies of Trap Trick, double copies of Transaction Rollback, double copies of Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon, one copy of Prosp, one copy of Called By, triple Infinite Impermanence, and triple Dogmatic of Punishment as our flex trap of choice, since we're not using our extra deck all too frequently, since we're fiend locked a lot of the time, and a lot of the fiend cards in the extra deck are quite pricey. We are opted to play Dogmatic of Punishment instead in order to have a flexible extra deck suite of Entis, Omega, Garura, Aggregator, and Wind Pegasus at Ignister. Another card that we could potentially think about is we could think about Chaos Angel, but that is about $18 a copy, so that is going to increase the price of this deck quite a bit. But if that was something that you wanted to play, you could cut something like a Nightmare Unicorn in order to slot it in just like that, and it's still going to be below the $100 price point. But in our extra, this is very similar to the Yubel deck, to be completely honest. We're on double copies of Muckracker, one copy of Nightmare Penis, one copy of Solar Rage, as well as one copy of Yama, one copy of Nightmare Unicorn, and one copy of Cerberus, and then Baguska, the Terribly Tired Tapir, which is coincidentally a Fiend monster, so even if we get Fiend locked, we can still make Baguska. But that's going to be about it for this budget deck, the fourth one. Now let's go on to our cheapest and our last budget deck. For our cheapest and our final budget deck, I am bringing to you Drytron. Now this deck has gotten a lot of cards unhit from it, namely Ava, and Orange Light. And now it's pretty much playable in the state that it was available to play, if not even stronger than it was in 2020-2021. So here I am bringing to you Drytron. We're on one copy of Ultimate Bright Knight Ursatron Alpha, always treated as an Ursartic and a Drytron, cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by a card effect. If you control an Ursartic or a Drytron monster, except for itself, we get special from our hand, then we can add an Ursartic or a Drytron spell or trap from our deck to our hand. We need to have a Drytron in order to summon it, but if we are able to summon it with a Drytron, we're able to add any Drytron spell from our deck to our hand, which is incredibly useful. We're on triple copies of Drytron Alpha Thuban, allowing us to pitch a card, tribute another Drytron or a ritual from our hand or field, special from our hand or graveyard defense position. All of our Drytron monsters are going to have that effect typically. Alpha Thuban on summon is going to be able to add a ritual monster from our deck to our hand, and then we're locked from special summoning monsters except monsters that cannot be normal summoned or set. So we're basically locked out of everything that can be normal summoned, and none of the Drytrons can be normal summoned. So we're not able to summon anything that couldn't be normal summoned, if that makes sense. So rituals, we can summon. Anything in the extra deck, we can summon. Those cards can't be normal summoned. Cards like Ava, we cannot normal summon anymore. Or cards like Diviner of the Herald, we cannot normal summon anymore. So if we want to use Drytron things and we want to run Diviner, we have to normal summon Diviner first. We're also on Zeta, that's basically the same but adds a ritual spell. One Delta, that's basically the same but we can reveal a ritual monster or ritual spell to draw a card. And then we're on triple copies of New 2, one of the new Drytrons. Not be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by a card effect. If a Drytron card is on the field, we can special summon this card from our hand or graveyard, but banish it and leaves the field. And if it's special summoned, we can add a Drytron monster from our deck to our hand except for itself. Then we can use each effect of New 2 once per turn, and we cannot ritual summon the turn when we activate either of these cards' effects except for machine monsters. Now, you're reading that and you're like, why are we playing Cyber Angel Ben 10? Because that is a fairy. Thing is, we're never summoning Ben 10, where this is exclusively tribute material for our hand in order to get more fairies into rotation, which is very useful. But that's it for our Drytron names. Now let's cover our spells. We're on triple copies of Nova, special summoning a Drytron from our deck by destroying it during the end phase. We're on one copy of Fafnir. When it's activated, allowing us to add a Drytron spell or trap from our deck to our hand except for itself, and the activation of ritual spells cannot be negated. Once per turn when a monster is normal summon or special summon while you control a Drytron monster, you can reduce that monster's level by 1 per 1,000 of its current attack, minimum levels 1 for the rest of the turn. Incredibly powerful effect, super useful against Yugioh by making their monsters a level 3 or even a level 2. We're able to, make them suffer. We're also on double copies of Medionis Drytron, which is the archetypal ritual spell, but instead of levels, it uses attack points for ritual summoning. We're on one copy of Quadrantis, one copy of Draconids, and one copy of DA Draconids for our ritual spells for Drytron, all of which providing different interaction points for our opponent. We're also on triple copies of Diviner, triple copies of Herald of the Orange Light for one of our hand traps, as well as triple copies of Cyber Angel Ben 10, double copies of Ava in order to be able to add all of these cards, since this card can add the same number of level 2 or lower light fairies. Namely, it's going to be Diviner and Herald of the Orange Light to add extra negation. We're also on one copy of Majora and one copy of Keldo, as just really cute cards we're able to discard from our hand to the graveyard with cards like Herald of the Orange Light. We're also on one copy of Called by the Grave and hand traps of Triple Effect Veiler and Triple Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. In our extra deck, our extra is actually not very tight at all. We're on one copy of Anemo, one copy of Lina, one copy of Access Code Talker, as well as Dynamondo, one copy of Cross Sheep, because Cross Sheep with Ritual allows us to draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards, which is pretty useful. One copy of Nightmare Penis, one copy of S Penis Little Knight, and one copy of I Penis Masquerena. We're on double copies of Elder Entity Entes as pop targets that we get sent to the graveyard of Diviner, as well as double copies of Herald of the Arclight as a way to go normal summon Diviner, dump Herald, add any ritual card from our deck to our hand. We're also on one copy of Ensemble Blue Robin as just ways to interact with our opponent, period, and double copies of Drytron Moo Bait of Fafnir. But that's going to be about the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching, if you still are. Thank you to my one member, thank you, Ari. If you want to see more budget deck videos in the future, please let me know in the comments. But that's going to be about it from me. Again, thank you all so much for watching, if you still are, and I'll be seeing you all later. Bye-bye. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you wanted to talk to more Yu-Gi-Oh! Players like yourself, I would highly recommend checking out our Discord server. Link is going to be in the description, as well as the QR code on screen. We do talk somewhat frequently about Yu-Gi-Oh! And the current meta, so I would really enjoy to see you there. As well as we do recently now have channel memberships available on our YouTube channel, where we have 3 different tiers. We have Super Supporter at $2 a month, where you get loyalty badges, emojis, guaranteed comment responses, a shout out at the end of every video, as well as access to the members only Discord channel, where you get early sneak peeks at future videos. There is the Giga Supporter at $5 a month, where you have early access to all new videos about a day or 2 before they go up, as well as all the previous offers. And for $15 a month, we do have our final tier, which is going to be Femboy Fanatic. You get a guaranteed customized video every single month, as well as 1 hour of my time. Could be for anything you'd like. You want a duel? Absolutely. You want me to help build a deck? Absolutely. You want to play some Helldivers? Sure. I'll do anything for an hour once a month. But supporting does help me out quite a lot, and it does help me produce all of these videos. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be seeing y'all later. Bye-bye.